I want to tell you something before we get into maps and numbers. 3 days ago, I was in a position near the Donetsk front line, not in a briefing room, not reading reports, on the ground, in the dirt, with the men who are actually holding this line. And what I saw in those 72 hours, I need you to understand this, is very different from what you are reading in the headlines. Not because the headlines are lying, but because headlines can never capture what this actually feels like, what this actually sounds like, what this actually smells like. So today, no politics, no NATO summits, no diplomatic language, just what I saw, what I heard, what I lived through in the last 72 hours on this front. And then I will give you the data, because the data tells a story that the Kremlin desperately does not want you to know. Sit down. This is going to be honest. The first thing you notice on the front line is the drones. Not the sound of artillery, not the distant thunder of explosions. The drones, they are constant, a low hum that never fully goes away, day and night. Every hour, Russia is launching over 1,000 drones every single day right now. FPV attack drones, Shahid kamikaze drones, reconnaissance drones, watching everything. And here is what most people do not understand about what that means on the ground. You cannot move in daylight, not openly, not in a vehicle, not to resupply, not to rotate troops, not to evacuate wounded. Everything, every single thing has to happen at night. And at night, Russian drones have thermal cameras. They see your body heat against the cold ground. There is no darkness. There is no cover. There is only speed and luck. In the first 24 hours I was there, I watched a Russian T-72 tank get abandoned by its own crew. Not destroyed, abandoned. The crew left it because they had no fuel. Our forces captured it, turned it around. Now it fights for Ukraine. That tells you something about the state of Russian logistics on this front right now. Russia is losing its ability to keep its forces supplied. Ukraine's drone campaign targeting Russian trucks, fuel depots, supply convoys, it is working. A report this week confirmed that if current loss rates continue, truck shortages could become one of the main operational constraints on Russia's entire campaign in 2026. Think about what that means. The fourth largest military in the world, or what used to be the fourth largest, cannot keep its tanks fueled. By the second day, I understood something I had heard about but not truly felt before. The young drone operators. These are boys, and I call them boys because some of them are barely men, sitting behind screens and controllers, fighting a war that no previous generation has ever fought this way. I watched a 20-year-old take out a Russian armored vehicle from 8 kilometers away with a fiber optic drone guided by a cable thinner than your finger that cannot be jammed, that cannot be hacked, that just goes where he points it. Ukrainian forces are now improving fiber optic drone capabilities to reach beyond 15 kilometers. 15 kilometers. That means a Ukrainian soldier sitting safely behind our lines can reach a Russian target 15 kilometers into occupied territory without exposing himself, without risking his life. This is the new face of this war, and Russia does not have a good answer for it. But here is the other side of that picture, the honest side. Russia is adapting too. Their strike packages are changing. They are mixing different weapon types in the same attack wave. Ballistic missiles together with drones, cruise missiles together with decoys, specifically to overwhelm Ukrainian air defense systems. On the night of July 1st to 2nd, just days before I was on the line, Russia launched 570 drones and missiles in a single night at Ukraine. 570 in one night. They included Shahed drones, Gerber drones, Italmus drones, Banderol loitering munitions, Zircon anti-ship missiles, Iskander ballistic missiles, KH-101 cruise missiles, Kaliber cruise missiles. That attack killed at least 27 people and injured at least 91 in Kyiv alone. When you see those numbers, 27 dead in a single night in one city, remember that behind each number is a family that will never be the same. By the third day, I started to understand the psychological dimension of this war. Russia is not just fighting with weapons. Russia is fighting with information, with perception, with lies. Let me give you a very specific example. On July 1st, Russian military bloggers posted footage of Russian soldiers raising flags near Kupiansk, claiming major advances. The ISW, the Institute for Study of War, analyzed that footage. Their assessment, the imagery was likely AI altered. Fake, manufactured victory footage posted to convince the Russian public that the war is going well, posted to convince the world that Ukrainian defenses are collapsing. This is what the Kremlin does systematically, deliberately. It is what they called, and I want you to remember this phrase, a cognitive warfare campaign. Putin himself sat with his generals on July 3rd in a staged meeting and made claims about Russian territorial advances that do not match battlefield reality. The ISW confirmed this directly. Putin's claims about settlements seized, square kilometers captured, the numbers were fabricated. ISW assessment: Russian forces have seized approximately 621 square kilometers across the entire theater since January 2026. Putin claimed far more. And here is the strategic truth behind those numbers. 621 square kilometers in 6 months in a country the size of Texas. At that rate, Russia would need decades to occupy all of Ukraine. Decades, while burning 30,000 soldiers every single month. The math does not work for Moscow. It has never worked, and Putin knows it. Now, let me give you the real data. Russian territorial gains in June 2026, 30 square kilometers, 30 in a month. The Economist estimated this on June 30th. Ukraine struck 48 Russian vessels in just 5 days this week, including Shadow Fleet tankers near Crimea. Russia's oil refinery situation: Ukraine struck at least 21 refineries, export terminals, and oil infrastructure in April alone. Russia's crude processing rate fell to 4.69 million barrels per day, roughly 18% below 2021 levels. 20% of Russia's refining capacity has been knocked out since March 2026. Think about what fuel shortages mean for a military that is already abandoning tanks because they have no fuel. Ukraine's drone campaign, hitting 48 vessels in 5 days, is not just a military victory. It is strangling Russia's entire shadow economy that funds this war. And Russia's response: Russia suspended all navigation through the Azov-Don Canal after Ukrainian attacks. Russia's own military command is reportedly reducing plans to build up strategic reserves because they need those resources on the front line right now. They cannot build reserves and fight at the same time anymore. Russia loses 30,000 soldiers per month. Russia cannot recruit 30,000 per month. Every month, the gap grows larger. After 72 hours on that ground, here is what I believe. Ukraine is not winning quickly. I will not pretend otherwise. Russia is still advancing, slowly, painfully, but advancing in Donetsk. The fighting around Sloviansk and Pokrovsk is some of the hardest we have seen. These areas are under real pressure, but here is what I also saw. I saw a captured Russian tank that ran out of fuel before it could fight. I saw a 20-year-old controlling a drone from 8 kilometers away with complete precision. I saw men who have been fighting for 2-3 years, tired beyond what most people can imagine being tired, still at their positions, still holding. Russia's cognitive warfare, the fake footage, the exaggerated claims, the staged meetings with generals tells you something important. When you are actually winning on the battlefield, you do not need to fake it. Russia is faking it. And that tells you everything you need to know about the real state of this war. I'm Sergeant Dmytro Shevchenko. I spent 72 hours on the front line, and this is what I saw. Men who refuse to quit. An enemy running out of fuel, drones that are changing everything, and a war that is far from over. in either direction. If you want to keep getting the ground truth, not the propaganda, not the headlines, not the stage meetings, subscribe to this channel. Tomorrow I will be back because this war does not stop, and neither do we. Slava Ukraini.